Okay, welcome to episode 6. I hope, well, chapter 6 anyway, is Christ Divided, the Ecumenical Movement. You should really get Moira on this because she's very excited about the ecumenical movement, and so it'll be interesting to see what she thinks of what I'm about to say. She might well thoroughly dislike it, which will be good and healthy, and then you can ask her about it. But definitely, you should ask her about ecumenical stuff. We're looking at page 43, and we're going to have a little look at India and China with regard to ecumenism, and we're going to see some quite different things. You remember that these little YouTube bits, they're supposed to be really short. I'm sorry I sometimes wax lyrically and witter, but they're supposed to be, if you like, teaser trailers for you then get your teeth into here, or for that matter, read Stanley's book and get a much deeper view and appreciation of what it is that he's saying on the subject. I wonder if you consider the 20th century to be the ecumenical century, or whether you think it to be a bit of a failure. On the one hand, we should be working more together. There's the divine command to be one. From John 17, verse 11, verse 22. Be one as we are one, says Jesus. There's a pragmatic element to this. We have fewer clergy, we have older congregations. Perhaps we could pool our resources. You look at the Carlisle diocese and the way in which they have more thoroughly integrated with Methodism than we ourselves have. Oh, what a depressing quote from Diarmaid MacCulloch here. Anglicans were always fatally divided between Anglo-Catholics and evangelicals who could not agree on what was important about being an Anglican, alongside the central Anglicans perpetually irritated at what they regarded as the unhelpful posturing on either flank. And so we see post-World War II, the brightest hope for the unity of humanity lay in strengthening ties, binding Christians together across continents. And so we see the World Council of Churches being formed. What a marvelous moment, except that Pentecostal and conservative evangelicals not too sure about joining in. Is it because World Council of Churches is just a bit liberal and not really their cup of tea? So to some extent, we see some successes, and here are some lists of them, but we also see failures. And in my view, I would see a horrendous failure by Anglicans with regard to ecumenism, with regard to Methodism. And I just think that's appalling. Now, let's look at India and the Church of South India. We're going to start off with, then we come to the Church of North India and see where that leads us. The aim here was to create a united church in India. It would have bishops, but be disconnected from the British state, but somehow or other in harmony with the genius of the Orient. That's the aim. We'll be using the Lambeth Quadrilateral as put together in 1888 as a sort of formative glue for this. And the key would be the importance of not being overly attached to any particular theory of episcopacy, bottom of page 44. Oh, that we could manage that. So let's invite the Mar Thoma Church into conversation. Very exciting, but they don't stay and participate, so that's a bit sad. India trying to form a culturally appropriate church organization, focusing less on form and more on spirit, less on this full-time professional ministry idea, more on the autonomy of local congregations. And so keying in with this Indian attitude of self-reliance and a sort of village elder type approach. And so they begin to form and they have this solution in terms of dealing with bishops and what they should be doing with that. All new ministers to receive ordination at the hands of a bishop, so that for 30 years, all existing ministers will be recognized, regardless of whether or not they had been episcopally ordained. Ingenious bit of drafting, but it seemed to work. And so slowly in 1943, 1944, and so by 46, the SIUC General Assembly is approved. Now, in England, we're not at all sure about this. The Anglo-Catholics in England saw this as apostasy. So full communion between the Church of South India and the Anglican churches was not established until 1998. Good Lord, what is wrong with us? So, Church of North India, different approach here. 1954, the approach is looking to be quite different. In contrast to the South India scheme, the North India proposals adopted the principle that the unification of ministries must follow rather than precede the formation of a united church. So it was, come on, let's just all get together, sign the bottom line, and then we'll work out the details later. All right, much better. This is a big picture approach. Details, wow, we'll come to details later. Marvelous approach. I approve of this. Bishops and representative presbyters, they would lay hands on each other and praying the bestowal of whatever grace each might need for their new commission. Gorgeous. Why can't we do this? Because we can't. And so here we have the establishment of the Church of North India. Now, the Church of North India, Church of South India, and the Martoma Church, they come together in a visible organ, the communion of churches in India. So there you are, a bit of ecumenism working well. Hard won, you might say, in terms of arguments and trying to make it culturally appropriate for them. So we come to China, Christian unity and disunity in the Republican and Communist China. Starts with everyone being terribly keen. Let's all be ecumenical. That's how it starts. The Union Chinese Church, where denominationalism will be out of the question, and so they form the Church of Christ in China, and that gets formed. By 1949, however, you've got the New People's China, and so you've got an ideological turbulence, you've got persecution, and you've also got a bunch of other Christians denouncing the CCC as being theological jellyfish. Marvelous phrase, marvelous phrase. So the key element we see with the New People's China is patriotism. Patriotism is everything. And if you're not being patriotic, well, I think we need to have a closer look. So patriotism is the key doctrine. And so we come to the three self church: self-government, self-support, self-propagation. We ought to have a closer think about that ourselves in what I've just said. And the thing is that you, in signing up for this, you are saying Christianity is not an imperialist, not an anti-patriotic force, and you ought to be happy with signing up to something like that. But you also might go, oh, this smells a little bit like the Confessing Church of Germany, and so I think we will step back. We would prefer to be like the Confessing Church in Germany in the 1930s, rather than be too aligned with the state in this regard. So some people were imprisoned. You should be looking out for somebody like Watchman Nee as an excellent example of really good stuff, and the persecution that they suffer under the Little Flock movement. The Three Self-Patriotic movement. This is peculiar. This is ironic. Enjoy the irony. This is where the state imposes ecumenical unity. You must all be one. And if you're not one, well, then you're an underground church. And so you have imposed unity forced upon you. As ever, a little bit not sure about Roman Catholics on account of the Roman part of the Catholic, really. And it looks as a little bit like you're under foreign authority. What's going on here? We'll be familiar with that. There's a red herring in my notes to do with the Spanish Civil War. I didn't know where to put it. And so that's why it's there. I hope it makes a little bit of sense. I'm also not entirely sure about my page numbering. I've clearly written that from somewhere else in my notes and then copied it over into it. I'm guessing that where it says page 35, I'm guessing that that's going to be Stanley, because I'm usually pretty good at saying whether it's a Diamond McCulloch quote. So you've got the Chinese Communist Party. They seem determined to divide the Catholics. And so in 1951, there's a bit of persecution. There's arrests, there's executions. You've got Beda Chang sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, Bida Chang, who dies in police custody and is hailed as a martyr, resulting in the faithful beginning to pray to him as a saint and expecting miracles. And as a result of this, the police go to the bishop and tell him that he would be held personally responsible for any miracles performed by the deceased. I'd love to have that. That must be hilarious. I probably wouldn't like that. I'm not very good under persecution, I'm sure. So in this process, what you've got is this official church, this unofficial church, hiding underneath it. Enjoy the irony again here, where the unofficial church, bottom of page 48, the unofficial church responds quicker to Vatican II and the use of vernacular. Brilliant! Now we can have liturgy in our own Chinese. How exciting is that? Whereas the official, the Chinese Catholic Patriotic Association, CCPA, the official church, Catholic Church in China, they remain using the Tridentine Latin Mass because, of course, they are a state-sponsored church. They did eventually change, but they were waiting for that. Of course, if we were at all talking about China, I have to wave this book at you. I think that goes without saying. So we're looking at ecumenism, but the question that we're asking ourselves is whether, in fact, this century hasn't been the greatest ecclesiastical failure of our time. We seem to be more disunited than before, more fighting amongst ourselves than before. And it turns out that denominationalism is not unique to the West, but the rest of the world seems to know how to do it. And we seem to be finding fresh things to split over. Homosexuality being, I suggest, the latest one for us to split over. So, but then, is ecumenism that big a deal? You talk to the young people and certainly youth workers that I speak to, and they're just less fussed about all this denominationalism and this issue than we grown-ups are. So maybe we should be listening to them, for they are, I was going to say the church of the future, they are the church of today. And I think we should listen as a church to the three self-church and consider adopting more of these issues, this self-government, self-support, self-propagation as an issue. Certainly we're invited to be self-financing in this day and age of quota finding. Anyway, enough witter from me. Ecumenism, we will come back and talk about racism at some later point.